What is up, cinephiles? Welcome back to Screen King. So Halloween is now fast approaching, and let's kick off this season with this Netflix horror film called No One Gets Out Alive, directed by Santiago Menghini. And in here we have this undocumented Mexican immigrant named Ambar, played by Cristina Rodlo. She transfers to Cleveland, Ohio in search of the American dream, but she does not have any green card or any government-issued ID with her, so she's gonna be forced to work in this job that does not require those documents. She winds up working in this tailor factory with poor working conditions, and she ends up renting in this rundown boarding house with a cheap monthly rent and justifiable enough looking at the state of the place. But you know what they say, when a place comes cheap, maybe you're not the only resident living in there. And of course, I'm talking about ghosts and supernatural stuff because this is a horror film and you know how it goes. And yeah, I was not really planning on watching this. I just kinda gave in because it's trending in our country and I gotta see what's the fuss about. But the trailer for this, the marketing is basically your standard haunted house tale, but this one got some surprises. It actually goes into some interesting places that I'm gonna discuss in full later in my ending explained segment of this video. But for now, you guys are safe. And actually in the first half of the movie, it pretty much plays on a cliche route. You know how it goes, all the telltale signs that this place is dangerous, something bad happened here, flickering lights, screams at night, footprints materializing out of nowhere, you got some glowing eyes from the dark coming from the ghost, and a lot of restricted off-limits rooms here, and of course the basement is always haunted. I wasn't really engaged going in here because I felt like I've seen many iterations of this subgenre, and the set design is actually stylistic. It's very aesthetic with its, I would say, dark to murky in terms of its style. Basically, the approach here of the filmmaker is to lull you into the tropes of the haunted house subgenre. But there comes a twist on the third act. Now, one of my pet peeves when it comes to the haunted house subgenre is sometimes they make the characters so dumb. Like, they don't really leave at the first sign that there's something malevolent being housed in there, but in here they make a good reason why the main character here can't just leave, because she's broke and she can't really call the cops if there's any sign of something violent happening in the house, because she will be forced to surrender her identity and she doesn't have any ID on her. She can't really go homeless because the cops are still going to be on her tail. So there's a real world terror here that's going to be resonant to some or maybe most of the viewers here. Like, imagine yourself waking in a foreign country, you don't have any distant relative, maybe those who are trying to help you are just trying to take advantage of you. So that fear of deportation is a real life horror, and mix it with all the supernatural happenings in this movie, you will really feel for the struggle of our main character here. And I think it's an easy way to generate empathy from the audiences. And here's the thing, I have sympathy or I empathize for this character, but I don't really feel invested. Maybe because the plot circumstances around her is so generic and so cliche that I was kind of felt like I was rushing just to get into that third act, just to see if this movie has really something new to offer. Now, they try to make the character more layered by giving her some backstories along the way, because she carries a lot of guilt and loss here because her mother just died in Mexico prior to her transferring here in Cleveland, Ohio. So you can see that incorporated in her nightmares, in her vision. So it's kind of a mix of fantasy and reality in her everyday life. The thing is, I wish that they kinda invested more in the relationship here on the other character that is closest to being a multi-dimensional character here, Red, played by Marc as the creepy landlord. I wish they focused more on the relationship, because I think there's going to be a good examination here between these two characters, because both of them are just stuck in this place that they want something for themselves. I think the dichotomy of this character study will pay off should the movie focus more on their relationship, and their eventual drastic decisions in the end will have more bite or have more shock. But obviously this film is going to be one of those films that's going to be talked about due to its third act. It's definitely bonkers and bizarre, though not as crazy as the third act twist in Malignant. This one comes a close second though. Just when you think you have everything figured out in this movie, it shows a lot of reveals and some mystery up to the credits roll. So there are some unanswered questions here. There's an ambiguity here because the approach here is to be more cryptic, but honestly it kind of feels more half-baked for me, and I know some of the audiences are not going to be fun with the lack of answers, so I will try my best later on to shed light and give interpretation to the craziness that happened in the third act. But yeah, that portion is gory, it's nerve-wracking. There's a lore to the haunted house here that's not explained to its fullest, and I kind of find it refreshing because mostly when it comes to these horror films, they are going to drop some exposition here to explain the lore, the backstory of the entity or whatever evil presence that's haunting the house. But in here, they're kind of embedded in the dialogues of the characters, so you really have to read between the lines to formulate the whole backstory here. But the script and the dialogue, I don't really find it compelling, and even if the whole execution leaves me wanting for more, there's a lot going on for this movie, especially on that third act twist. And yeah, I have one major positive for this movie that I can't really say until I get into the spoiler territory, but let's just say that there are some visual effects applied here and it's really top-notch. Yeah, so I'm gonna give this one a 2.5 out of 5 stars for now. It's not particularly a must-watch movie for me, but if you're looking for something new in Netflix and just to kickstart that Halloween countdown and get into the Halloween spirit, go ahead and watch this. It's not that bad. Now, I'm now proceeding to the ending explained portion of the video. So if you haven't seen the movie, better pause this video, or maybe you don't care about spoilers. You just want to know what the third act twist is. So feel free and proceed at your own risk. So going back to the visual effects thing, I think one of the strengths of this movie is its brilliant creature design. Yes, there is a creature in the haunted house. We have this stone box that's being shown multiple times throughout the film. I think it's brilliant the way they shot that scene. As you see the monster crawling out of the box, you can't really identify what kind of creature is this? Is this an amphibian? Is this a spider? And how do I describe it? I'm just gonna flash it here. It has this humongous arms that works also as legs, and its actual arms are kind of short, like T-Rex arms, that it needs to do a squat position to grab its victim and eventually feed on it, with its mouth being located at the bottom part of the body, like some sort of a female genitalia that's chomping up heads. And its head, it looks like there's a membrane obscuring the whole face of the thing. So it's really stuff made of nightmares, specifically from the mind of Guillermo del Toro. I was reminded of the movie Pan's Labyrinth. That monster belongs into that movie. Now, where did that monster came from? The answer came actually in the first few moments of the movie, because we got this archival footages. A group of archaeologists are excavating this box where the monster came out. Apparently, this monster roots way back to Mesoamerican civilization, and forming the whole story just by listening to the dialogues, you can deduce that one of the discoverers is Dr. Wells, and he is actually the father of Red here and his brother Becker, who apparently controls the being, the entity, because they are preying here on these young undocumented women, because if they go missing, the authorities are not really looking for them. So that's the whole conceit behind the thing. They are offering these girls in exchange of, I would say, physical or mental healing, probably immortality, because in one scene we can see Becker having his wound healed when he got scratched by one of his victims. And also Red mentioned that Becker is somewhat of a mentally challenged person, but his mental condition improved once they started feeding the creature with its victims. They don't really have the money to afford the medication, so they're just trapped on lulling these poor victims. So now, how did Ambar beat the monster? Right at the moment where she's about to be decapitated, the monster infused some of hallucinations to her, and I think that's the power of the monster. It preys on your weakness. She goes back to the moment that her mother is dying, and that moment, I'm not sure if this actually happened, but I would like to think of this as a metaphor or a symbol where she choked her mother to death with a pillow, because that's a way of her moving on from this tragedy. And so she woke up, and the monster, realizing that it has no power over her, cowers back to the box. When she opens that box again, she discovers this skeleton and this butterfly. So apparently the monster is already dead. But then when she goes back upstairs to exact her revenge against Becker and Red, she successfully kills Becker. However, Becker cracks her ankle, and she manages to injure Red and takes him back to the sacrificial chamber. And boom, the monster is still alive apparently. So I'm not entirely sure on how this thing works. Maybe the monster keeps on reincarnating depending on the person. So Red has not defeated the monster yet, so he succumbed to his weakness, and the monster successfully ate his head. Now, as soon as Amber is about to leave the building, her ankle magically gets healed. So I think the only logical explanation to that is by sacrificing Red, who now turns into a ghost, she is now the one who's being in control. If it's Becker controlling the monster before, it's now her. So at the end of the shot, we get some glimmer of smile from her. I would like to think that she's now succumbed to the power, that she's going to continue the cycle of sacrifice here. Maybe that's the only logical choice for her, because she's in a foreign country, nothing is really left from her. Her mother is already dead, and everyone else is rude to her. Well, the only person that's nice to her is Beto, and that guy is already dead. So if it's only the monster that's going to embrace her with open arms, then why not? So I think by the end, she's going to continue that cycle of sacrificing people for her own benefit. So yeah, in the end, no one really gets out alive, because the only way for her to stop is to end with a similar fate like Becker. So that's it for my ending explanation part of this video. I know this movie is subject to different interpretations, so if you have a better explanation than mine, or anything that's different from what I said, go ahead and comment them down below. Also, if you enjoyed watching this video, hit that like button and subscribe to me for weekly reviews of movies and TV shows. Thank you so much for watching, and till then, I'll see you all on the next one.